When people talk about dog enrichment, they usually think of sniffing, brain games, and all different activities that you can do actively with your dog. But one of the most powerful senses for calming your dog is one that we often overlook, their sense of hearing. Hearing is a very powerful sense for our dogs, and sound can literally shape your dog's emotions just like smell or sight. The right music can literally slow their heart rate, ease anxiety, and even strengthen the bond that you share. In today's episode, we are digging into the science behind auditory enrichment, how music, voice, and natural sounds can help your dog feel safer and more connected. Welcome to Dog Enrichment. I'm your host, Tori Mistick. I am a certified canine enrichment technician, and I have been blogging about how to make the best of life with your dog for nearly 13 years. In today's episode, we are taking a deep dive into the science of auditory enrichment. That's another name for sound enrichment. And we are going to cover three big themes. So first of all, we're going to look at how music can be a mood regulator, how sound variety is really great for stress relief. And then finally, why listening together is an amazing way to build the bond that you share with your dog. We'll wrap it up with a listener question about fireworks, storm sounds, and anxiety, and a couple of ideas on how to help with that. And I'll share a few of my favorite sound enrichment tools that you can use in life with your own dog. If you have any questions that you'd like me to cover on a future episode of Dog Enrichment, the podcast, you can submit them at toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. That's going to send you to my website, wherewagrepeat.com, but it's just a simple URL I created that's easy to remember. toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. You'll find the show notes for all of these episodes, all of these scientific and research citations that I've used, products I love. You can also find my mental enrichment activity pack if you want to unlock 10 really fun mental enrichment activities to do with your dog. Let's go ahead and get started with our first segment of this episode, which is talking about how music can be a wonderful mood regulator for your dog. So, in every episode, I find really cool scientific studies to kind of explain why we want to do things. Like, you might have heard of calming music for dogs, but why does it work? Why is it good? What kind of a difference is it making for your dog? So to figure that out, I looked at a study that was done by Lisa Wright and Daniel Mills. These researchers played classical music for kenneled dogs. They were in a rescue facility, I believe. So they were all in their dog kennels, and they tracked the behavior and heart rhythms of these dogs when they listened to classical music versus when they had no music playing at all. And they found that when the music played, the dog's heart rates slowed. Their heart rate variability improved. That's how they measure that their bodies were in a calmer state. And they also noticed that these dogs, when the music was playing, they spent more time resting and a lot less time barking or pacing around their kennels. So to put this in plain terms for all of us, it showed that calm, steady music helped the dogs relax on a physiological level. So we can't always ask our dogs how they feel. Do you feel calmer after listening to a little bit of Chopin? We can't ask them that, but we can measure their physiological response. And Lisa Wright and Daniel Mills found that dogs did actually have a calmer state of their body and their minds and their emotions when they were listening to music versus no music at all. So for your dog, that could mean that you play a slow playlist for them. So you look this up on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you like to listen to music. You want to look for music that is around a tempo of 50 to 60 beats per minute. That's really the sweet spot of calming music for dogs. You might play this during crate rest time, after a walk, at bedtime, in the afternoon when you just need a moment of peace and quiet. But just get a playlist ready to go, and that way you can play it whenever you need that moment of calm with your dog. An album that I really love is Lisa Spector's Dog Gone Calm series. On Spotify, I have Dog Gone Calm Volume 1 saved as a favorite it. I think I even downloaded it on Spotify so I can listen to it when I'm not on Wi-Fi. That's a very good tip if you travel with your dog. I recently played that playlist with Bert when we were staying at a B&B for a night up in Connecticut recently, and it was a strange place he'd never been to before, and I wanted him to feel calm and relaxed. So I played Lisa Spector's Doggone Calm for him, and we just listened there together, and I petted him, and he really calmed right down, and he slept beautifully. It was his best night of sleep in a hotel ever. So it really was very effective for us on that recent trip. And an additional benefit of listening to this music side by side with your dog and petting them and just calmly being there with them while you're listening to this calm music is that petting your dog actually lowers your own cortisol levels and lowers your own stress. So this is a habit and a ritual that is really going to benefit you and your dog. And we know our dogs feed off of our own energy. So if we're feeling calmer and more relaxed, it's just going to help them get into that state as well. And as a matter of fact, I interviewed Lisa Spector this summer. I was a guest host on the Pets Add Life podcast. So I'll share with that a little bit later in this episode. I'll share with you some of the extra bonus tips that Lisa shared with me when I talked to her this summer. Now, classical music is not the only thing that helps dogs. There was another study that was done by Susan Bowman and her team. Together, they studied 38 shelter dogs over the course of 5 days. And each day of those 5 days, they tried playing a different genre of music to see if it had a different effect on the dogs. So they played classical music, soft rock, Motown, pop, and reggae. And they watched how the dogs behaved, and they measured all their different stress hormones and their heart rate and all these different physiological responses. What they found across all these different genres of music was that playing some type of music was much better than silence. So the dogs were already much calmer with any type of music versus silence. But when they were playing music, soft rock and reggae caused the biggest drop in stress behaviors. So the dogs rested more and they barked less when they listened to soft rock or reggae versus any of the other genres. So you don't have to play classical music if it really irks you. You can opt for some soft rock or some reggae. Those are also very calming genres. But remember that one of the most important parts of this study was that any type of music was better than silence. So if you are leaving your dog home alone sometimes, we all have to do it, whether you're going to work or running errands or just doing some fun stuff throughout your day. Try leaving on some kind of music for your dog because it helps them feel a little bit calmer than having complete silence. I thought that was really interesting. But something else that Susan and her team found out in this study was that the same music played over and over didn't have the same effect. The benefits kind of faded if the dogs listened to the same music over and over again. So in other words, dogs get bored listening to the same playlist. So you might want to rotate your playlists. Maybe on Monday it's classical, Tuesday it's reggae, on Wednesday it's soft rock, on Thursday it's Motown. You can play a variety of different music, and that way your dog is still going to get the benefits. It's not going to be as predictable. I think we've found that through all the different episodes and all these deep dives in this limited series of this podcast. In every different category of enrichment, variety is key, and choice is also key. It's really important that you're not blasting this music in your whole house. Maybe give your dog the option. If they don't want to listen to that music, they can go to a different room. If they just want to have a quiet time and not listen to music, that's totally fine for them as well. Now, I was reading my friend Taylor Finton's book. You might know her from Bindy's Bucket List. She has a book called The Happiest Dog on the Block. And in there, she actually recommended a few specific songs that hit that 50 to 60 beats per minute. So to give you an idea of what songs would be great and what kind of a playlist you could put together for your dog, Landslide by Fleetwood Mac is a really great one to pull up. Trouble by Ray LaMontagne. I love that song. And then Fly Me to the Moon by Frank Sinatra. Those all fall into that 50 to 60 beat per minute tempo that you want to find for calming music for your dog. Now, beyond music, there are other ways that you can add some sound variety to your home environment for your dog. So sound enrichment, auditory enrichment doesn't just mean music. It can mean other kind of pleasing sounds. Remember, enrichment is any kind of way to add something that's going to benefit your dog. So it never means taking away something. You're always adding something beneficial to make their life better. So some other ideas that are not music would be some nice, gentle wind chimes. Nothing that's going to be like too crazy, too loud, too chaotic, but some nice, gentle wind chimes that you could put outside. A lot of people get wind chimes to remind them of their dogs who have passed the Rainbow Bridge. So if you're in those shoes, maybe you want to get some nice wind chimes, and whenever you hear them, you can think of your dog who's passed on, but you can also, you and your dog who's with you now can enjoy that nice little bell sound that you get from that. You can also try experimenting with a water feature or a water fountain. You could play some natural bird sounds or nature sounds. As a matter of fact, I have a playlist on YouTube of Sit and Watch the World Go By with me and Lucy and Bert, and we have some great videos where you can enjoy bird sounds, just general nature, the wind, the rain, school buses going by. We have a lot of great videos in that playlist. If you want to just hit play and listen to it for a little while, you can watch the world go by with Lucy. We love doing that together. And so I'm really happy that I kind of memorialized that activity in that YouTube playlist. So I'll link to that in the show notes for this episode if you want to check it out. Another thing you could do, just to give you some more options, I love options. You could record yourself reading a book or a poem, or you could record yourself just telling your dog about your day, and then you could play that recording of your voice for your dog when you're not home, and that might comfort them a little bit if they struggle with some separation anxiety from you. Now, speaking of separation anxiety, that brings us to our third study we're going to talk about today, which is why it's so important to listen to music together and just to do enrichment activities together in general. So while sound enrichment can definitely be played for your dog while they're home alone, I highly recommend that you think about doing sound enrichment together. So a 2022 study done in Finland showed that dogs who had a higher emotional closeness with their owners had more calmer and stable states in general. So that means that the bond that you share affects your dog's nervous system. When they feel secure with you, their body relaxes, their heart rate slows, they have a calmer emotional state. So doing more bonding activities so that your dog really feels that they have a secure attachment to you, it's going to help them feel calmer in general, and it's going to enhance all of the other enrichment things that we do to help them feel calm and happy and confident. Right? So this episode is kind of a quicker one just because there's not as much to sound enrichment as something like scent or food or cognitive, which, speaking of next week, stay tuned because next week we're covering scent enrichment and it's going to be a really good episode. But just to recap here, while we're talking about sound and auditory enrichment for your dog, to recap what we've talked about in this episode, remember, music makes dogs calmer, more so than silence. So consider putting on some nice calming music in the background for your dog while they're home alone. Also, consider having a music routine where you listen together and make a habit out of sitting and calmly petting your dog and listening to your favorite calming music together, because that's going to help both of you reap the benefits of this routine. And then listen to a variety of sounds. So it doesn't have to all be classical music, although we do love Lisa Spector's albums and her playlists. They're really wonderful. There are other things that you can listen to, like nature sounds, wind chimes. There's some really great YouTube videos of, like, I have this playlist of Sit and Watch the World Go By, but you can also sit and watch people go on a hike in amazing locations that has nature sounds built into it. I love doing that. Hopefully all of this together will really really enhance your life together with your dog and help them tap into their sense of hearing. So enrichment is more than just their sense of smell or their sense of touch and sight. We want to think about their sense of hearing as well. Next up, we are going to talk about our listener Q&A for this episode. So we have a really great question from a listener who is dealing with anxiety with her dog. And I think this is a common problem for a lot of people. So see if this resonates with you, and let's talk about what the solution might be. So our question from our listener, Debbie, she says that she could use a little bit of help with her dog, Zippy. Zippy is super anxious around fireworks and storms. The vet gave us different meds to take 2 hours before fireworks or a storm is going to happen. But sometimes storms are unpredictable or people set off fireworks without warning, so that doesn't always work. She has tried everything from thunder shirts to trazodone and everything in between. So what can she do to help Zippy? So this is a really great question. First of all, I feel for you, Debbie. It is so frustrating when our dogs have a lot of anxiety and fear around sounds, especially like fireworks or storms, because those are just things we have to live with. I guess we don't really have to live with fireworks, but the people in our communities do kind of make us have to live with those. And then storms are just part of life, right? So it's really frustrating because we can feel very helpless and like there's nothing we can do to help our dogs and they're just so afraid. So here's a couple of suggestions and something to think about. This really gets us thinking about the difference between sound enrichment and sound desensitization. So sound enrichment, like what we've been talking about this whole episode, is about creating positive, calming associations with everyday sound, like playing music that we know naturally lowers your dog's stress and cortisol levels and their heart rate, or listening to bird sounds, water features, or wind chimes, all of this nice, delightful stuff. On the other hand, sound desensitization is more of a type of behavioral therapy. So this involves gradually exposing your dog to sounds that might trigger them. But the key is to start super, super quiet and keep the sessions super, super brief, and then gradually increase them. The goal here is to get your dog to not be so reactive to these sounds, and it can work really well if you pair this desensitization process with another positive activity that your dog really likes, such as a lick mat or a snuffle mat. So you can go on YouTube and you can find a variety of different recorded sounds of fireworks or storm sounds, and you can start playing them very, very low. So for example, if you imagine the volume spectrum is on a spectrum of 1 to 50, 50 being like maximum volume, you want to start at a 1. So start playing these sounds at a level 1 on your volume, and maybe play them for 5 minutes in the background while your dog is enjoying something else they like that lick mat or that snuffle mat. Gradually, over the course of many days and maybe even many weeks, you can increase the volume of those triggering sounds like fireworks or a storm. Now, if your dog does show any signs of discomfort or anxiety, you're going to want to take it back down a notch. So you can see this might take a little bit of while. It's going to take some patience from you, and hopefully over time your dog can get desensitized to these triggering sounds and figure out that they're maybe not so scary, and maybe even they can be kind of cool because they're going to get a great lick mat or a snuffle mat or a bully stick or something really great like that. So I hope that this advice helped. Again, thinking of sound desensitization versus sound enrichment. You might want to work in some of this sound enrichment also, because we've just heard how beneficial it can be to listen to music for 10 or 20 minutes alongside your dog. It really lowers their cortisol levels, so you can get them at that kind of like nice low base level of stress, and then get them desensitized to those triggering sounds. And hopefully over time, dogs like Zippy will not be so triggered by the fireworks and the storms. And maybe this is something that has to be paired with medication. I know Debbie said that she's tried all different kinds of medication and thunder shirts and even calming gels and different things, that she's tried everything. So hopefully you can do this desensitization routine over the course of several weeks and maybe pair it with some of those other tools, and together Zippy can feel really calm and confident and maybe even sleep through these noisy disturbances. So I really wish you the best of luck. If anyone else is struggling with that, please comment below. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can also comment on Spotify. And of course, you can find me on Instagram at Tori Mistick. I'd love to hear about how this has maybe worked for your dog, or different solutions that I haven't thought of that have really helped you and your dog. And we can share those with the whole community. So thanks again, Debbie, for submitting your question. If you have a question, if you're listening to this and you think, oh, I really wish Tori could help me with this other thing, please go to toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. There's a form right at the bottom of that page where you can submit your own question for a future episode of this podcast. And that brings us to our product spotlight for sound enrichment. Now, there's not really products that I have to recommend for you today, but there are some tools that I can suggest. So one of those is, like I mentioned, Lisa Spector's albums. She has a new album out this year called Chopin for Dogs. She also has Dogs Gone Calm, Volume 1, that you can find on Spotify. And I told you early in the episode that I was going to share with you some little tidbits that Lisa shared with me when I talked to her this summer. And she had a really great piece of advice to think of music like any other prescription from your vet. So when your vet prescribes a medication, they say, take one of these every 12 hours for 7 days, and your dog's going to feel better, right? So she said, think of music like that. Do music on a routine where it's like, listen for 10 minutes twice a day for 7 days and see how your dog feels after that and how you feel as well. So she has found that music enrichment can be so effective for helping our dogs feel calm and relaxed that you should treat it like a medication prescription from your veterinarian. And it really goes to show that consistency is the key with any of these things. So I just thought that was such a great analogy and an example. And I love analogies. That's just how my brain works. So I wanted to share that and pass that advice on to you. Now, another tool that I love for sound enrichment, I discovered this recently. There is a playlist on Spotify called My Dog's Favorite Podcast. It came out a couple of years ago. But it's really fun because the tracks are hours long. Each episode of this podcast is hours long. And it starts off with actors reading out and speaking to your dog. So there's one that starts off like, hey, I need to head out on some errands. I know I hate to leave you, but you're going to be safe and sound here at home, and I'll be home in a jiff, and I've just got to do this, and then I got to do that. So it starts off with this talking, and then it goes into this calming music or calming bird sounds. It's really, really so well produced and so well engineered. I highly recommend checking it out. And it could serve as inspiration for your own recording. If you want to record your own voice for your dog, go listen to how these episodes of My Dog's Favorite Podcasts go, and you'll get some ideas on how you might be able to narrate your dog's own custom calming sounds or music or podcast. Make your dog their own podcast. Why not? So today on this episode, we learned that music can literally change your dog's physiology. Classical or slow tempo music like soft rock can lower their stress. It prevents boredom behaviors, and sharing your listening time together actually deepens the bond between you and your dog. So this is a really beneficial type of enrichment. It does fall under the passive category, so it is a really easy thing that you can add into your routine. Don't overlook these passive enrichment activities. So in the previous episode, we talked about visual enrichment, and today it's audio enrichment. And these are really important things to balance out all those really fun, active games that you're doing, like snifaris or terrain walks or whatever kind of fun stuff you're doing with your dog. For a lot more ideas, you can go to my website. I can grab my freebie, The Ultimate Enrichment Guide. It's 16 pages where I put together all of my very best enrichment tips. Plus, at the back back of that guide, there is a self-guided assessment that you can use to come up with your dog's own custom enrichment plan. And that's a really fun thing for you to do. You can also find the mental enrichment activity pack that includes 10 unique mental enrichment activities that you won't find anywhere else. And that's all at toriknowsdogs.com/podcast. Now, if you do make a soundtrack for your dog or a playlist for your dog to help them chill out and calm down, I want to hear about it. Send me a DM at Tori Mistick on Instagram, or find me on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere else that you hang out, and share a link to your dog's calming playlist, because I would love to check it out and play it for Bert sometime. Now, stick around next week. My new episode is going to be about olfactory enrichment, which is a fancy way of saying scent-based enrichment. Scent is definitely our dog's most powerful sense. So this is going to be a really valuable and action-packed episode. Until then, I will see you around the interwebs. Again, I'm Tori Mistick, and thanks so much for listening. This has been such a joy recording this limited series podcast. I'm halfway through. This is episode 5 of 10 that I am releasing in season 1, and it's been so great to see the response. So if you have benefited or enjoyed these episodes so far, please remember to rate and review. You can leave a review on the Apple Podcast app, and you can also follow me across all the things. And I love you so much for it. Thank you so much for caring about your dog enough to listen to this podcast all about dog enrichment.